Mr. Phillips, and Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There he is. Councilor Phillips has arrived.
Elvis is in the house.
So rules of order, we follow Robert's Rules of Orders for our meeting, as well as any rules that we adopt at our annual meeting. I would also just remind everybody, if you have phones, if you could silence them for the meeting, that would be appreciated. So adoption of, and I also would like everyone to know that we are removing items 19 and 20 from the agenda. So with that, adoption of minutes from the following meetings of the Ellsworth City Council: November 8th, 2019, special council meeting; November 13th, 2019, organizational meeting; and the November 18th, 2019, regular council meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor? Unanimous. City managers report.
Things are slowing down for the holidays, and people are going to get some well-deserved time off with their friends and family. Hope everyone enjoys the holidays and travels safely and shop Ellsworth. I would mention that City Hall will be closing at noon on December 24th for Christmas Eve, closed on Christmas Day, and on the New Year's Day, January 1st, the following Wednesday. That's all I have tonight.
Committee reports. Do any councilors have any updates from any committees that you've attended? Council Moore.
Last Wednesday, I attended the Harbor Commission meeting, and just a few things happened. It was reported the 2019 season gasoline sales surpassed 2018's sales by nearly 1,000 gallons, which is good. Probably having something to do with taking the corn out of the gasoline for the voters. We'd also like to thank Ron Fortier for his electrical work and help, which was necessary to put the harbor to bed for the winter, for its long nap. The anticipated walking extension featuring a concrete path toward the Dead River office is scheduled to be completed before the end of 2020. It should be pretty nice. We were shown a sketch of what it's going to look like, and I think people will like it. There was a follow-up discussion on potential change to the harbor ordinance relating to certain residential or commercial structures on or in the waters of the city. For example, houseboats and things like that, if they can be there and how they can be used. That's not a done thing, but in a couple of months, we'll have that worked out. There was further discussion on the Harbor Commission taking part in organizing and sponsoring a summer festival, perhaps even an oyster and beer festival in the harbor. And the discussion time came around to what exactly they would like to see develop for a summer event, and who to involve in that. So it's an ongoing discussion. And finally, the harbor boat has been shrink wrapped, and it's been put to bed behind the highway garage. This is our new craft. It's not named the Titanic. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have
Council
one
Miller.
for the Recreation Committee. Chairman Hamilton and I attended the meeting on 12/4. At the time, they were still looking for 2 new members, and they decided to fill those slots with students. One would be a junior and one would be a senior. and they will be voting members. And then on March 15th, 2020, they talked about the Maine bicentennial in conjunction with the Heart of Ellsworth to close down Franklin Street and have food trucks, music, fire pit, and then fireworks that night. Is that, you were looking at me, is that not right? Okay. And Shane Lowell wasn't there, but he emailed the YMCA youth report on sports, and the ice rink is still awaiting a good cold stretch. And there was also a discussion of the capital requests and a request for a feasibility study for a recreation complex, including a dog park. There was also going to be a meeting with the Heart of Ellsworth concerning the future of parades in the town and how they will be handled, and maybe a rewriting of the ordinance. The next meeting is January 8th.
Thank you. Other, Council Grindle?
I have a couple. The solar project that we've been working on, it's still in progress. There's an RFP out there, and it's due Wednesday at 2 o'clock. There's been a lot of different changes throughout the time. David, do you have any specifics you'd like to add, or we'll just wait for the RFP?
Yeah, we did extend the bid period from originally December 4th to the 18th because there were a number of questions. So to give solar operators a chance to come up and see the sites as well as do research on them, but otherwise it's scheduled for opening on 2 o'clock on this Wednesday. And we will see what the interest is from the solar community.
Okay. And also, the HCTC Steering Committee has been meeting over the last couple of weeks, conducting interviews from the request for qualifications that we put out, of potential firms to partner with for the feasibility study. And so that is ongoing, and hopefully we'll be able to meet in the next few weeks and have something back to you in the January meeting.
Any other councilors? So I would just, one thing I would like to note to the council is that I pointed myself to the EBDC committee group, but I'm going to remove myself from that group, and we'll appoint another member from this committee. So if you have an interest, let me know, and I'll make that appointment. The reason for that is just to, we're talking a lot about chairing the HCTC committee at the moment, and EBDC is very much involved in that aspect. So to ensure that there's no conflict between those two committees, I'll step off of that committee and have somebody else participate. So I will name somebody, and then we'll make that public for the community. All right. Item 7, citizens' comments. This is the opportunity for citizens to speak on any item they wish outside of the agenda. What I do want to say is that if there is an agenda item that you do want to speak on, you'll have an opportunity at that time to do so. So this is an opportunity for you to talk about other items. I would also say to the public that may be watching, certainly this is an opportunity each meeting to present in front of us, but I would also encourage you to reach out to us in other means. If you have thoughts, concerns, questions, ideas, the more information we have, the better we can do in carrying out our responsibilities. So with that, I'll open up citizen comments.
Good evening, councilors. David Cole. My name is Cara Romano. I'm the executive director of Heart of Ellsworth. As some of you may have known, today we had a very important visit from the Maine Development Foundation's Main Street Maine program. We did a tour of the city of Ellsworth, and we showed some really great, spectacular places that were open today in downtown. We have been working with economic development with Jana Richards for the past year to ready our city for this site visit. Today, we came and we toured a bit of City Hall, and we made our way down through council chambers. We went to the library. We looked at the State Street Petersburg block, and we kind of toured all of Lower Main Street, made our way up to John Edwards, the Grand Theater, Airline Brewing Company, and then we went to Fogtown, Atlantic Art Glass, and then we ended down at the Union River Center for Innovation. We had 5 different folks, including Ann Ball, who's a program officer for the Maine Development Foundation's Main Street Maine program. They came today, and while we still are not sure if we have completed this phase of the process, things are looking pretty promising for Ellsworth to become the next and only affiliate community this year, and it will be, I think we'll receive our notification probably at the very end of 2019, the very beginning, but Ellsworth is the only community in the whole state this year that went through the application process. So once we do get to the next phase, we will be putting through a couple of press releases, as well as the National Main Street Program will also put through a press release stating that Ellsworth has become an affiliate community. Over the course of the past year, with Jana's guidance, we assembled a group of community members who were interested in helping us sort of do this application and highlighting all of the different places that Ellsworth is in its development towards becoming a Main Street Maine community. So today was a very big step in the right direction for us to really be heavily focused on downtown and on revitalization, everything from walkability to design to events happening and just community, in general community involvement, and community folks working in tandem with the city. So we're really proud to announce that we finally made it through that part of the process, and we look forward to keeping all of council and, of course, all of our community and municipality up with the information of whatever it is that lies next for us. So we stuck in your mailboxes earlier today and through via email over the course of the past month. You've seen our actual agenda from today. So David Cole was very gracious with his time today, and we all just want to thank you all for your contribution to the process, because council, working with council and city municipality is a very important part of it all. So thank you very much.
Carl,
Yes.
has your organization and yourself been working with other groups within the city of Ellsworth during this process?
Yeah, we, up on our website, on theheartofellsworth.org, there's a page that's dedicated to the affiliate process. Jana, at the very beginning of this year, made a suggestion that we put all agendas up there, as well as there's a photo and there's a good, solid example and explanation of the program, why we want to be a part of this. And we had folks from all across. We had community members that were on there. We had a representative of the Chamber of Commerce. We had a couple of downtown business owners, a couple of people who are residents of Ellsworth, and with Jana and I working together to sort of lead this effort, we had a really good diverse group. That was one of the comments from the statewide level, is that they had said that of most cities that they do site visits at, there isn't the sort of breadth of different members of the community at it, and they really applauded us for having such diversification of people across the board.
Good.
So it was pretty exciting. It was a successful visit, I will say.
Karen, did you go above Hancock Street on Main?
We did not. We only had about, I guess it was probably about 3 or 4 hours, and we were not able to show them everything. We had to really pick and choose, and a lot of the picking and choosing of the locations that we stopped were different, that fit different criteria that they have for these main streets to sort of become an affiliate community or a Main Street community.
You missed an opportunity. There's all kinds of businesses there. Allen Blueberry this time of year, you know, with their wreath making, they're winding down. But they're still putting out a few. If you've never seen that in operation, it's
I was not aware, so we,
that is a wonder to see up there.
okay, yeah. Well, we can certainly, we have the opportunity to send them a lot of communication afterwards. So our application was submitted in October, and then this was the next step of the application. So we certainly can send them further information, and we can certainly do that. So thank you for the suggestion. Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Other citizens' comments?
Good evening, councilors. Nicole Grahowski, citizen of Ellsworth, also state rep for Ellsworth and Trenton. I just want to take an opportunity to piggyback a little bit on what Cara said. I had the distinct pleasure of getting to join for the last event at Erky this afternoon from that tour, and I was just so impressed with the presentation that Jana gave there and with the way the community really did come together. She said there was a member of Chamber there, the city staff, Heart of Ellsworth. I know there was a presentation from the Historic Preservation Commission. It was just such a great example, and I wish you all could have been there because the group of 5 people from the Maine Development Foundation just had such glowing things to say about the city and what we have going on and what our future is here. So I think it's just a moment to be really proud, and I want to congratulate everyone on the work of this past year. Secondly, I am here as a member of the Ellsworth Green Action Team, part of the Ellsworth Green Plan. And I was hopeful that I would have some exciting breaking news from the State Department of Environmental Protection, because we were expecting a bill from them today, but they have asked for an extension on it. And I was going to bring it in front of you so that you could become familiar. But the bill is essentially to help municipalities with the cost of recycling, and to do this by putting some of the sort of the burden and responsibility of all the packaging that the municipalities have to deal with back to the producers of the packaging. So the DEP's been working on this for a number of months, and hopefully there'll be a bill soon. But and I do plan to share that with the council, because we are hoping that you might consider it and decide if Ellsworth would be willing to pass a resolution in support of the bill. To that end, I want to invite you to an event that we're having on January 9th. That's a Thursday after the holidays, so I'm sure you'll all be recovered by then. 7 p.m. at the Moore Center, and it's about recycling reform for Maine. And I'll be presenting and showing a few different films, and then providing a few more details about the bill and having a sort of community question and answer session. So you're all welcome to join, and I will, as I said, share some more information as I have it from the DEP once we receive it about this topic. So
Is this the meeting that got snowed out last Friday?
no, that was different.
That's a
So this is a
okay.
public presentation for anyone that's concerned about our waste management, our recycling in the state to come to. That meeting was with Eco Maine to just determine if there's any possibility there for a regional collaboration for recycling. But same topic, different type of solution.
Different
Yeah, different day.
I'm sorry, what time did you say? it was?
7 p.m. And our snow date is the next day, which is January 10th, also at 7 p.m.
Will you have the ability to live stream it? I will be out of town, so.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if the Moore Center has that
Is it
capacity,
in
like.
the auditorium at the
Yeah.
Moore Center? No. Okay, see, no.
Maybe I can get somebody to
Facebook.
Facebook Live it.
Do you have a bill number for that?
Ooh, I'll let you know.
Okay, you
I've
can-
got so many bill numbers in my head right now.
You can email.
But, yeah, and hopefully, so there was a bill that authorized the DEP to do this bill, and so there was that original bill that set them on their path, but we don't have the bill and the bill number yet for the new bill.
Okay,
But when that's available, I'll send it to you all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is this, what is it generally targeting when you talk about packaging? Is it packaging, all packaging? Is it certain sectors of businesses? Is it local packaging? Is it larger companies? What is this looking at?
You should come to my presentation. But to answer your question very briefly, the goal is to help with the management of all packaging, but that will happen through different types of fee structures for the producers of the packaging. So really small companies that are based here in Maine are below the threshold of what we would consider to pay into a producer responsibility organization. And it's a tool that's used in dozens of countries. It's used in Quebec for 15 years now, this producer responsibility. It's an example of it is our bottle bill, or things like lead acid batteries or other things. That's an example of producer responsibility. This particular legislation is targeting all other packaging than the bottle bill, since that's already in process. But come to the presentation and learn more
7 o'clock,
details.
January 9th.
That's it. We'll hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you.
There must be some of the packaging that need a chainsaw to open.
My name's Steve Wasson, and I'm responsible for the letter that was in your inbox the other day. And first, I want to thank you guys for your service. I don't think I could do this over and over. And I admire you all for your efforts. Recently, we've had some trouble with our signs and code enforcement. It's, at first, code enforcement has a tough job, and they've been nothing but professional. So it's not code enforcement, it's the code. And that's what we have an issue with. And the code makes it almost impossible for the code enforcement to enforce it because you have all these things that have been done for years and are violations of the code. All we're asking is to be able to put signs up for craft shows, and not just ours, but, you know, churches and things like that have to use really inexpensive advertising. The money just isn't there to go to radio or whatever. And we're listening to how the city or the downtown area is trying to get business to go. We already have businesses that are going and are organized without any effort from the town, receive no funds, and we're just asking for a place to put our signs. And the signs go up and they come down. And so even if you hate a sign in a certain spot, it's not there very long. But it would help us immensely. In order to get good crafters at a craft show, you have to have traffic to support them. Otherwise, the crafters won't go to that craft show. And it's the same with customers. In order to get customers at the craft show, you have to have good crafters. So it's built over a period of time. And, you know, the craft show that takes place here is 17 years old. You know, and it's in violation of the law when it puts its sign over there at the triangle. And it's city property. Their sign hurts nothing. Our sign hurts nothing. It's up and it's down. So what I'm asking is for a review of the code to make this a little more friendly to businesses that already exist. And that's all, you know. So thank you for your time. I admire you greatly, and I think I'll kick my coat and get out of here because
Wait,
I don't think I can do
before you
this,
go,
you know.
before you go, I just have
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah,
Do you advertise on Facebook?
we do.
Okay, good, yeah. I'm sure
Yeah.
Councilor Kaplan's an
Yeah.
expert at,
We advertise, we do a lot of things, but the best things we have are the signage
yes.
that we put up. It's pretty simple. You know, it makes it a special event. You know, it becomes exciting the more signs you have up,
I have a question.
within reason. Yeah?
So can you go back to the, thank you.
Are any of these examples of your signage?
No,
None of these are examples
of his, no.
of his.
That's all
So
my doing.
what kind of sign were you looking to,
Our signs are plywood. They're 24 by 32, and they're painted usually a white background, and they're done fairly well, I think, because I paint them. You know, so I think they're pretty showy. But you know, the differentiation between the craft shows that are going to be around very long, they're going to have signs that are attractive and are easily read and are taken down in a timely fashion because otherwise they don't mean anything. You know, if you put them up too long, they don't mean anything. You know, they just become another sign that you drive by. It's the impact of seeing the sign come up and then having the sign come down. You know, so our signs are never up longer than a day after the show. We put on several shows a year, you know, upwards to 5, I think, and we do the month of December out at the mall. If you're out there we'll have, when we're loaded with vendors on a Saturday, we'll have upwards to 90 vendors out there. And these are all small vendors that come from this area. So it's pretty impressive. It supports people who fill their oil barrel with the money they get from this thing. So we require no money from the city. We're not asking you to do anything except let us put signs up. So it's business development without any government involvement except letting us put a sign up in an area that's been traditional for signs. When there's an election, you can go by that place and it's loaded with signs, but it's because it's a high visibility area. Everybody wants to put their sign in those two areas. Ours was next to Governor Mills' sign, which was larger than the code provided for, but, because it's a Governor Mills sign, you can do about what you want, I think. I don't know. But we're not asking for anything great, and we just want the city to be, friendly to us. So.
Okay, just note that political signs are governed by state law, not local.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. There's things that politicians cut for themselves that the rest of us are not privy to. So, and the other thing is, not to be confused with yard sales and stuff like that. You see the garage sale signs, little signs like that, and they come up everywhere. And I don't know how you enforce that anyway, because there's a zillion people out there. The signs go up. When I'm putting my signs up, if there's an old yard sale sign that's beyond the date of the yard sale, I pull them up, because obviously they're not coming back. I can't help you with that one, But I can tell you that the signs that I see, they're made out of plywood for these craft shows, and oftentimes ours isn't the only one. There'll be 3 or sometimes 4 in this Christmas season. They can in because they're reused next year.
How are they secured?
Grade stakes. They're pounded into the ground, and when you're done, you wiggle them out and grab them and go. And there's a limit to how many signs you'll put up because it's a lot of work to put them up. And if you go away from those 2 hot spots, it takes more signs. Now you've got to cover a whole bunch of different streets. So.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Other citizens' comments?
I have a comment as a citizen.
Steve? You might want to hang on for this one.
Definitely.
Well, I would like to take a little time to talk about signs that we have on Main Street. And I'm not advocating that we disallow signs, but I think we need further conversation on perhaps having some regulation and holding some people responsible for their signs. Now, as you know, there has to be enough room on the sidewalks of Ellsworth so that someone in a wheelchair, motorized or otherwise, can easily pass by. Sometimes the sign is in the middle of the sidewalk, sometimes it isn't. Well, this past Sunday, coming down over Bridge Hill, coming across the bridge, you can't help but look at the post that holds the traffic lights, because there's always something on there. It was really interesting. I'm sorry you can't see this, but this one I particularly like. That's the yard sale sign. Can you see it? Good vision. It says Ellsworth, 11 Shore Road. Yard sale is going to be held on August 3rd. This was last Sunday. The thrift shop suitcase ended up out in the street on Sunday, but it had been windy. This is one of our Oh, this is actually the post. I don't want people to look at a post like this if they're making their first trip to Ellsworth. Now, this is ugly. It's an awful mess. We've spent a lot of time and a lot of money to beautify Ellsworth. You shouldn't have to look at stuff like this. Now, this is a nice little sign. And it's well made. It might be a little big, I'm not sure, but it's not a bad sign. This one was laying on its side, and it said, "Come visit Water Street," and it had in small signs that you'd have to walk up to read. It advertised a couple of businesses on Water Street. Like I said, I'm not necessarily against having a sign, but I think there needs to be some kind of organization and so forth to where the signs can be, how long they can be there and so forth. Not interfering with things. Like I said, we beautify Ellsworth, and we gotta keep it nice and clean. Maybe paint the streetlights too. Thank you.
Council Blanchett.
What I want to say has nothing to do with signs. I just want to hand out congratulations to members of the administrative staff here at City Hall. Once again this year, they've taken it upon themselves to use the money that is collected at the transfer station over the course of the year. People bring in their empties, purposely hand them over. Sometimes they intend to just throw them away and do not want the deposit. The staff takes those empties and over the course of the year cashes them in. In November, they get in contact with social agencies, and with that money, they buy Christmas gifts for kids. They do this on their own time. They're wrapped on their own time. It takes nothing away from their city duties. And this year, 109 kids that would not get gifts are getting gifts. And by the way, that's an increase of 20 over last year. So I just want everyone to know that the city staff does this of their own volition, and I think everyone should know that. And next time you talk with them, offer them a congratulations, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
So I'll check one more time for any citizens' comments. Anyone? All right. We will move on then. Presentation of awards, there are none this evening. So we'll move on to unfinished business, consent agenda. Consent agenda, all items with an asterisk are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Since there's only one item, that will not be an issue. So council order number 121900, request of the Harbor Commission to accept a resignation letter from Robert Merrill with a term to expire on June 30th, 2022. Councilors.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. New business. Public hearing and action on the following applications for new and/or renewal on the following licenses. Madam Clerk, are we all set with everything's in order? The first one being Finelli's of Maine Incorporated, 12 Down East Highway, for renewal of a city Class B license, victular liquor arcade, and renewal of a state restaurant liquor license, malt and vinous. Public hearing is open. Does anyone have a comment? Public hearing is closed. Councilors, any discussion? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move approval for the request of Finellis of Maine for renewal of their licenses.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous. Ellsworth CI LLC DBA Ellsworth Comfort Inn, 130 High Street, for renewal of a city lodging license. I'll open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Any comments? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Councilors.
Mr. Chairman, move approval of the request of the Ellsworth Comfort Inn for renewal of their license.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Yep.
Council Order Number 12901, request of the Public Works Director to authorize payment for motor repairs to the Highway 2009 International Plow Truck Number 34.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Public Works Director is under the weather, so I'll be presenting this evening. I'm here to request approval for payment for repair work done to our 2009 single-axle international truck. This is our only remaining reliable backup truck. The truck was delivered to Caldwell Diesel to be diagnosed. I requested estimates from Caldwell Diesel. Per our procurement policy, we're required to get an estimate and then enter a purchase order. We didn't hear anything until we received the bill in the amount of $23,000. The repairs to this truck included pistons and rings, EGR valves, 6 injectors, main bearings and rod bearings, head bolts, and turbo work. So we're here tonight because the city manager has an approval up to $15,000, and this is $23,360.90. If you have specific questions about the truck, the highway foreman, Bernie Hussey, is here to answer those questions.
Have you had a chance to call Wells to talk about this?
I have not.
Looking at the labor rate, is there any way we can negotiate a better labor rate? It's $105 an hour. That's a lot for mechanic work. I mean, 75, I think would be fair. Maybe we could, as a city, with the amount of work that we bring them, negotiate a static labor rate. But $105 an hour is a lot.
I'm going to look for this.
Councilor.
That's a franchise dealership, and I think you'll find if you check, and if you went from there to Darling Chevrolet or Darlings or any of the other automotive or repair type things, unfortunately, that's about that's normal right now. It's been in the range of $100, $105 an hour, $95 to $105 an hour at a franchise dealership.
Also, looking at the bill, when I was looking at it, the injectors for $3,000, it looks like that's a duplicate item. It appeared in 2 different bills. So I'm just wondering why it was in 2 different bills.
I can certainly look into that.
Yeah, I would just have them check the accuracy of the bill and see if they'll give us a better rate.
Okay.
Jamie, there's one injector on one bill, 5 on another.
Okay. Can you?
Bernie, come on.
Bernie Howsey Foreman. I looked at the bill. On one bill, there's for 1 injector, and on another bill, it's for 5. That's why you see it in 2 different bills.
Thank you.
I can answer anything you want to know.
What's
Councilor
the
Grindle?
definition
Go
of
ahead.
osmosis? Kidding.
Is Caldwell Diesel aware of our procedures as far as the
I've mentioned it to him
procurement
many
process?
times. When we took the truck down, and he kind of told me what it was going to be. I asked for an estimate, and he could not give me an estimate. I called. John knows what it's like. I talked to my boss, and she said we would go ahead with some of it. And the next thing I know, I have a bill for $23,000.
Has Mr. Caldwell explained why the work was done without authorization?
Nope. He assumes that we want it done. We took one of our other trucks to Bangor and had it fixed because of that somewhat reason. And we got a quote from them. And it was, when the bill came, it was the exact quote.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Caldwell why it was done.
Call him out and ask him. I've had a hard time getting trucks in there to get them worked on. Because he has had no help. I waited 2 months to get one truck in. And we buy, equipment from them, but I guess it doesn't matter anymore. So.
Whatever motion you'd like to put forward.
Would it serve any purpose to table this item until next month?
I don't know.
I think that would be fine, because it'd give us an opportunity to speak to Mr. Caldwell about the bill and look into the request of Councilor Kaplan to see if we can negotiate that rate as well.
So move.
Some motion?
Seconded.
Motion and second, discussion.
But, I'm sorry, the motion is for,
To table, sorry.
Table.
Yeah, there's no discussion on it. To table. So all those in favor to table this until next meeting? All those opposed? Abstentions? One abstention.
Thank you.
Tabled. Item number 12, Council Order Number 121902, request of the Library Director to accept a bid for the library roof repair project.
Thank you. Amy Weishart, Director of the Ellsworth Public Library. So I'm here about the library's roof. It's in poor condition. We've had several leaks over the course of the fall. So we are looking at roof repair, especially in the older part of our building, the Tisdale House, the historic structure. The shingles are in poor condition. We have some leaking from the cupola as well, so we need some repair work done there. And then the newer part of our building, the addition, just a little bit of minor repairs. So the bid that we're looking at, we put out an RFP earlier in the fall. We received only 2 bids. One was from Williams Construction Company. The other was from Sinclair Builders. The library trustees did review the 2 bids, and they approved the one from Sinclair Builders. So we are here to request approval from City Council, and then the funds would be the library fund balance funds that in 2017 City Council allocated toward library capital improvement requests pending availability of funds. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Cox.
I had reviewed it. I thought it was a very fair rate, considering the amount of work they're willing to do. The one question I have is, would they be willing to update their liability, their insurance form? It expired on the 11th.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Okay, I will look into that, definitely. Thank you.
Other questions?
Other questions?
Council Blanchett.
Amy, how many bid packets were sent out to various contractors?
We put it in the Ellsworth American, and then our custodian reached out by phone. We didn't send formal bid packets out to anyone, but he did contact several contractors to see if they were interested in the job.
So
So,
how many, do you know?
I think it was 5 or 6. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay.
This is a fair.
Councilor Phillips? Did you?
Yeah. Time, when would they be starting?
They have availability in the spring, so we're hoping to get on their docket fairly early in the spring, just so we can prioritize it. So they
Not
can
winter
get
work.
them. No, not winter work. No.
And the other bid, I could not read the pricing. It was,
Oh,
and I was curious to what it was because I didn't see.
the pricing was, if they just did the Tisdale house, it was $10,630. For the full job, it's $29,000, so it came in higher than the other one.
I couldn't. It didn't copy very well.
Oh, yeah,
Thank
that was
you.
handwritten. but-
Other questions? Is there a, Council Moore?
Is there anything that you need to do in the short term to avoid any further damage?
I think at this point, our custodian has looked at it pretty thoroughly. He keeps an eye on the cupolas, so we're kind of keeping tabs on the leaks. But I think right now we're okay, but we're hoping to get it scheduled early in the spring. So, yeah.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Move to approve the bid from Sinclair Builders for $24,372 to make repairs to the library's roof and cupola and install sheathing to be funded from the library assigned fund balance.
You have a motion?
Second.
You have a second? Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you.
Item number 13, public hearing and action on enacting Ellsworth Code of Ordinances, Chapter 62, Taxation of Timeshare Estates Ordinance.
Councilors, before you, you have a proposed new ordinance for your consideration entitled Taxation of Timeshare Estates. The ordinance was prepared by City's Attorney John Hamer, who is in the audience tonight, and here to discuss the ordinance and answer any questions from the council or the public. In summary, this proposed ordinance would shift the responsibility of tax collection on individual timeshare units, and I believe there are some vicinity of upwards of 3,000 timeshare unit weeks in that vicinity. It would shift that responsibility to the Timeshare Owners Association through their managing entity, which would then be responsible for tax collection, dealing with delinquencies, and covering any deficiencies owed to the city. If this ordinance is adopted by the city council, it would need to go into effect July 1st, consistent with the city's fiscal year. So as written, it would go in effect July 1, 2020. Staff has met with representatives from Acadia Village Resorts to discuss the ordinance. They're here tonight, and I'm sure they will be discussing their concerns and asking questions as well. They did ask if the council were to go forward with this ordinance, whether the council would consider putting it in effect July 1, 2021, to give them time to build up sufficient reserves to cover the obligation. I would, at this point, again, recognize Councilor Hamer, who's here, and invite him up to rostrum to answer more specific questions about the ordinance and how it would work.
Thank you and good evening. David, thank you. You took all the good parts of the ordinance and you told them what it said already. So I'm going to go through, if it's your will, and explain a little bit more about how the ordinance works and what it's based on. And then if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The ordinance that we prepared is based on your home rule authority, as well as Title 33, Chapter 10A, which specifically permits these types of ordinances. Now, Section 3 of the ordinance, and I'm not sure if you have a copy of it in front of you. It's the draft. It may or may not have been circulated. But Section 3 authorizes the city to basically send a tax bill for the entire timeshare project to the managing entity. If there's a developer still in the picture, that could be the managing entity. Otherwise, it could be a homeowners or an owners association. So there's some overriding group that's in charge. They will be getting the tax bill. Section 4 then authorizes the managing entity to collect money from the individual timeshare owners and put it into an escrow account, which would be held jointly by the city and by the managing entity. if they're able to collect enough money to cover all the taxes, then everyone's happy, all the taxes are paid. Unfortunately, if there's a case where they are not able to collect the total amount of taxes due for all of the timeshare units, then the managing entity is required to make up the difference. That will prevent new foreclosures by the city. So hopefully, after this ordinance is passed, there will be no more new foreclosures, and you may have some units that are prior foreclosures, but there shouldn't be anything new. The ordinance then authorizes the managing entity to place liens on the appropriate timeshare weeks. So if they end up having to pay for someone else's taxes, they will get a lien on the timeshare units as well. So they're basically taking the place of the city and getting that lien. It's a different kind of lien, but it's still a lien to secure their interest. The city also has the right to ask the managing entity for a list of the non-paying owners should the city decide they want to prosecute or take the normal lien foreclosure route as well. So you have that option as well. Section 7 of the ordinance provides that if the city does have foreclosed units, that you would be exempted from paying the agency fees or the maintenance fees of the association for the period of time when you're owning the units but not actually having them in use. If you should sublet one of the timeshares for any period of time, then that period of time would be taxable, and it would be subject to the any agency fees or maintenance fees. Finally, Section 8 of the ordinance authorizes a civil action to enforce the ordinance. Hopefully that wouldn't be necessary, but you always have to include something like that. If there's a violation, the minimum penalty upon conviction is $100, goes up to a maximum penalty of $2,500, and it's a per-day basis type of fine. So there's a good incentive for the parties to make sure that everything is done in accordance with the ordinance. As David had mentioned, the tentative time frame for implementation was put down as July 1st, 2020, but that's your decision whether you want to have it extended by a year to get other things in place before you take this route. In a nutshell, that's the whole purpose of the ordinance, and as I said, it's based on state law, and state law pretty much went through and exactly told us what we can and what we can't do, and so it's pretty straightforward.
Just to put some context to this, among timeshare associations elsewhere in the state, some collect the same way we currently do, others do it the way we're proposing to do, by having the timeshare association collect the taxes. For the past at least 2 decades, it's been done this way. It gets a bit confusing because the city has foreclosed on, I believe, 280 units. Tammy, is that the number, or somewhere that we have foreclosed on? Or Larry, how many units do we have under foreclosure?
I think it's around 300.
Around 300. Later in the agenda is a proposed master lease agreement with the timeshare association to work on trying to move those individual timeshare units. They're not affected by this, but as Councilor Hamer said, once those units are sold, hopefully it will not create any more pyramiding of units. I would add that our relationship with Acadia Village Resorts is very good. This happened a number of years ago. It was set up this way. It's turned out to be a burden on our staff to manage this, and we've been trying to figure out ways to move the stranded units and get them back into a tax-producing status, as well as to figure out ways to relieve some of this burden on our staff. So just a little context.
Councilors, any questions? Councilor Planchet?
Go ahead.
Counselor, if the managing entity changes, would this ordinance follow on to the new entity?
Yes, the ordinance specifies the managing entity. It doesn't, and there's a definition section here which defines it as the manager of, or if there's no manager, the associate of the unit owners. So if there's a new manager comes in, it's going to apply to the new manager. In absence of a manager, it's going to be on the joint owners. So someone will be the managing entity even if there's a change.
Thank you.
Councilor Kaplan?
Just wondering, a lot of times shares are taxed as the entire facility, the entire unit, all buildings, all weeks, and then they distribute those costs equally among the people who own the timeshares. Is there any particular reason why this wasn't done in this situation?
That's an historical matter. I see the city assessor is coming forward, perhaps can answer that question.
Thank you, City Assessor Larry Gardner. The state law mandates that each individual week be assessed separately. So I can't, as the assessor, it cannot be appraised as a motel or a lodging facility, resort. Each individual week has to, by law, be assessed. And even if this ordinance comes into effect, it's not going to change what I do. It's just the tax collection end.
Is that because it's in a deed, in the form of a deed?
Yes, exactly. Each week does have a deed.
So how does that relate to this change where the managing entity is then required to make up the difference of the tax? And if they don't, and that tax is getting applied to, what you're saying, each week, but let's say they don't collect enough for 5 weeks of whatever unit, but then the city has the right to then foreclose and a lien. Is the lien then on the entire, across the whole?
That's not exactly how it works. What happens is the managing entity is the one that would get the lien. The city would not be getting a lien because the city's taxes will be paid in full. The ordinance, which is authorized by state law, says that basically the managing entity has to collect all the monies from all of the units and all the timeshares. So the only one who would be getting a lien would be the managing entity. So the city's not going to have to worry about foreclosures. It's similar, but it's a different group and it's a different organization.
So essentially then what we're doing is the only thing that net gain really is we move the responsibility for the lien, the foreclosure, and the city will no longer take those units. But there's no guarantee. This doesn't change anything in the way of necessarily of collecting the taxes if those individuals don't pay them.
If the individuals don't pay, that's the responsibility of the managing entity. So the city is shifting the burden of trying to track down all the individual owners onto the group.
Thank you.
And Councilor, I think this comes back to Councilor Kaplan's comment that other share associations, they send out the bill. This would be the same way here, correct? They would send out the bill. It's just they would be responsible for making up the deficiencies, and there are enforcement provisions within the ordinance.
Councilor Blanchett.
Counselor, if there is not sufficient funds in their account to pay the tax bill, then what?
That is a good question, and that is a question that the municipal group has discussed. There are two possibilities. The first is that there is an enforcement mechanism in the ordinance, so you could actually bring the managing entity into court and say, you owe us a deficiency, and we get to have penalties on top of that. That's really the worst case scenario. The city would also have the right to go after the individual unit owners on your own. So if you decide that, gee, the managing entity has tried its best to collect all the money, and they can't track down these people, then you can elect to take and file your regular certificate of lien on the unit and proceed as normal. But in the end, if the money's not there, then the money's not there. The idea is with so many owners that there's a large group of people there interested in preserving the same piece of property and that they should be able to generate the money to pay off those taxes. In the end, if you needed to place a lien on a property, you could. Same thing with the managing entity. They'd have the right to create a lien on the property and eventually execute on it.
Councilor Miller.
I'm unclear as to reason for the year delay that they're asking for. What is the specific reasons for the request for delay?
There are representatives from Acadia Village Resort here. I'm sure we'll address that in the public hearing.
Okay.
Any other questions from councilors? Hearing none, then this is a public hearing on enacting Ellsworth Code of Ordinance, Chapter 62, Taxation of Timeshare Estates Ordinance. I will open the public hearing.
Hi there, my name is Jim Killam. I'm resort manager of Acadia Village Resort. I don't know how much you all know about Acadia Village Resort, but we're a 39-unit timeshare. We have 14 employees. We have an annual budget of a little bit over $900,000. And in discussing this idea with David that was given to us, I don't know, 30 days ago or something like that, the thought that we could receive a $175,000 real estate tax bill and expect to have that paid in full in 30 days is very difficult for us. We think that it's best to let the city continue doing what it's doing. The resort was billing the taxes when it opened in the late 80s. For about 10 years, and then for whatever reason, the city decided to take it back. And the city's been, doing it since, I believe, 1996. Just the burden on the resort alone makes it very, very difficult to comprehend. Say, we get 75% of the money in 30 days. That still leaves us about $40,000 to come up with. And that's just not doable, David said that other resorts do get a tax bill from the town or city that they are in, and that's true. Southwest Harbor has a very similar timeshare resort called Harbor Ridge. They're just about the same size as we are, and their total tax bill is a little more than half of ours. So I think if the council decides to make these changes, and they certainly have the right to, I don't think anybody's disputing that, I think that it's just going to start a ball rolling for, review of real estate taxes, and I don't know if we want to go into that. Does anybody have any questions? I know one council had a question, why do we want to take a year? Right now, we've already billed maintenance fees to the first half of our owners. The best case scenario for the resort would be to add real estate taxes onto the maintenance fee bill as a line item. So we're not sending out additional invoices. Okay? The total number of owners that, by my calculations, is closer to 2,300. We bill out about 700 invoices every half a year, because some owners own every year, some owners own every other year. So we would be 700 invoices behind for the first half of 2020. And, not knowing what the tax bill is going to be, how are we going to bill them? So we'd have to bill 700 for the first half, and then 1,600 for the second half. And with a 14-employee staff, it's just a lot of work.
So If, if we postponed it until July of 2021, that would greatly facilitate your ability to meet that?
It would help. It would help. I think it would be delaying the inevitable. Once again, putting more burden on the homeowners association. Say we have to foreclose on 50 owners per year, that's time, money, resources that we would have to add staff, When you add staff, you increase expenses, and then you would increase maintenance fees, which, once again, makes it difficult for owners to own their timeshare. We did not have a maintenance fee increase this year. We've sold from HOA inventory probably 80 to 100 units. There's a proposal next to allow us to take over selling the city weeks. I'm not a forecaster, but I think we could sell at least 50 of those next year easily. Keep it all in one place where one call can get people the information and the accurate information that they need to make an accurate decision.
So, question I have is, what I understand is that the amount of work that the city is taking on is pretty considerable now, for the same reasons you just identified in terms of the time it takes to go through the foreclosure process, all of that work, and now the taxpayers are paying for that, to have that labor take care of those types of activities. So why should the city continue to carry that burden versus having it where the ownership lies?
Couple reasons for that. One, I think it just seems logical to have the people that are already billing real estate taxes to continue to do that, even though there is a large number. I don't know if I said we have 2,300 owners, not quite the 3,000 that was mentioned earlier. I just wanted to correct that. And the other thing that I feel is that the resort, the homeowners association, has kind of been paying for this position, right along with the assessed values of the real estate, values on the timeshares. The city has, 275 weeks that they're trying to sell for $100, and they're not selling. But some of them have values of over $5,000. And these valuations have not gone down for 9 years. I don't understand how you can maintain the argument that valuations are not going down when you have weeks that you can't sell for $100. Like I said, the total tax bill that we would expect to receive would be roughly $175,000. I think I've confirmed that with Larry. Southwest Harbor is $99,000. If you cut our valuation in half, we're in the $90,000 range. Okay, which I think is a good starting point as to where it should be. So I think it's a reasonable argument that we've been paying $90,000 in taxes every year to help the city do this. I think we've been working with the city to do this and supplementing that through real estate taxes.
Councilor Blanchett.
You said a couple minutes ago in answer to Councilor Moore that delaying it until July of 21 is delaying the inevitable. What's the inevitable?
The inevitable is that the resort is going to have to pay money to make up for the unpaid real estate taxes. As the attorney stated, the managing entity is on the hook for any taxes that aren't collected. So if we have to put in $20,000 a year out of our, $910,000 budget, we're going to have to raise fees, and that starts to spiral down. and I don't know how many councils have been here for a while, but the biggest problem with why are there so many timeshare units foreclosed on, probably 13, 14 years ago, the development company closed their doors. Acadia Village Resort, Inc., which is a different company than Acadia Village Resort Homeowners Association. And when they closed the doors, the city foreclosed on about 150 of their weeks. So you start with 150 foreclosed weeks, and we're at 300 now. 10, 15 years later, we're only talking 15 or 20 a year. You know, if we can sell 50 units a year, that inventory is going to go down fast. What I would like to see from the council is just table this for 1 year, give us a chance to see how many weeks we can sell, and look back at it again next year with fresh eyes.
Council Cap.
What, a couple of questions. What is the total amount owed just for timeshares?
Total amount owed,
Yes, what is the total amount?
The tax bill?
Yes, the tax
I
bill.
believe,
175.
175 was quoted,
Yeah, roughly.
correct?
yeah, roughly 175,000.
Okay. And as a city, is there any reason why we can't cut them a break and say, look, we haven't collected it for X number of years, it's sitting on the books, but it's not doing anything. Can we cut them a break and give them a percentage of forgiveness once they enter into this? To kind of meet in the middle?
I would note that the 300 units that the city owns aren't being taxed and are not affected directly by this. I would ask the city assessor under state law, what are the remedies in terms of taxes? I know it's covered by the Constitution.
Regular homeowners can file for.
Rebate, or
an
abatement, excuse me, yes, absolutely.
During this planning phase we've been through to get to this point, one of the things that was brought up is the fact that, yes, the city does have these for $100, and they're not flying out to property owners picking these things up. So it does have an effect on value. And I believe we've had them for $100 for a couple years now, at least 2, maybe 3. So it does have an effect on value. And that's one of the things I've told the Jim and the homeowners association, that I will be looking at these values, and that there is going to be a lowering of the assessment, but I have to actually go in there and look at that very carefully to see what that is. But I will be looking at that, and that will lower the tax bills for all the weeks.
Okay,
While you're right there, just take an average week. If I own one of the average ones, what is my tax bill?
It's about $65 a year.
And how much are the fees on this one that I might own?
The maintenance fees range depending on the size of the unit. We have a 2-bedroom sleep 6 townhouse, that's $420 per year. Our largest unit is a manor unit, 3-bedroom sleep 10, and that's $608. And not to contradict Mr. Gardner, but if you own a timeshare every year, your tax bill is closer to $100. If you own every other year, you would get a tax bill every year, but it would be $50 per year.
And the tax bill also fluctuates by how many rooms and so forth?
Yes, yes. And if you own every year, your tax bill is the full value. And if you own every other year, you get half it. And the person that owns the other year gets the other half.
Thank you.
Mayor Schapel.
And I just want to emphasize again that the 300 units the city owns will not be the tax burden of the association. They're foreclosed on and still owned by the city, and they're arguably the least desirable units, which is why we own them. Deputy City Manager?
We also, due to the ordinance change, will be writing off those taxes when if we do agree to move to the agreement with Acadia, we'll just be writing all those taxes. And I think it was around $20,000 we'll be writing off.
Right. So that's not being shifted to the Acadia Village Resorts.
I'd like to say my son took a Calculus 3 final today, and I think that's easier than understanding.
I'm Rusty Weymouth. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association. Even though this ordinance you guys are looking at today may be perfectly legal, morally, ethical, it's the worst thing you can do for us. You're asking a owner at Acadia Village Resorts who pays his bills, who pays his maintenance fee, to pay for his neighbor who does not. It's just the wrong way to go. My wife had a scenario that's awful close. She says, so somebody in Ellsworth owns a trailer park. Does a trailer park owner, is he responsible for the taxes of everybody's trailer? They are not. You're asking us, our minimum wage people, and that's about what we pay down there, is minimum wage. It's not a high-paying position, to do the job of your professional taxpayers with all your computers and the proper programs and whatnot. The inevitable you ask for, I could conceivably see within 3-4 years, you guys got to own timeshare. Because it's going to devastate us. We cannot even begin to do this. I talked to Larry a few years ago, complaining about my valuation. He says, well, when John Walker sold them, they were this much money. He says, you can ask for a abatement. He says, but I won't grant it. We sell timeshares right down to the timeshare for $100, and we have a hard job getting it sometimes. Now they get the tax bill. Well, guess what? Your valuation is 40 to 50 times higher than actual market value. We need to stay open down there. We need to keep our operating expenses at a minimum. We need to make it as affordable as possible for people to own down there. And taxes are part of it. They're not all of it, but they're part of it. The timeshare, as far as city services, not a single child goes to school out of that place. I don't know about this city, but I tell you where I'm come from, over 50% of my taxes go to schools alone. We don't ask for any roads. We own our own road. You know, there's minimal city services. There's a sign in the timeshare and the manners that if the smoke detectors go off and the fire department comes, we get billed for it. You know, this is just the wrong way to go. Acadia Village Resorts is a very large economic engine for this area. I see on TV here a few weeks ago your town manager talking about small businesses, you know, how they're the backbone and whatnot. Stop trying to kill ours, because it will kill ours. I'll give you as far as an economic engine, I own week 48, which was just a couple weeks ago. My wife and I come down. She likes to come down here and do her Christmas shopping. If I didn't spend $1,000 in this general vicinity that week, I didn't spend a dime. I wouldn't do that. If the timeshares weren't there, that would not bring this money in. Summertime, there's a lot more money than what I spend goes through here. So basically what I'd like to see is the city to do what the city does, which is you are the taxing authority, you're the taxing entity, you got the professionals to do it. And let us do what we do, is try to run a timeshare. The next one coming up, as far as, us getting together and helping you sell your timeshares, I think that's great. We're in a better position to sell them than you are. I would like to see this not tabled. I'd like to see it go away. And we got to take a serious look at tax values. I mean, These taxpayers, what other business in town or homeowner in town do you tax at 40, 50 times actual value? I've heard the term in the years past, distressed sale. They're not a distressed sale if everybody's selling them for the same price. That's what they're worth. They were sold years ago, and I bought it hook, line, and sinker when John Walker was selling them. You know, I think I paid, I don't know, $5,000, $6,000. That one I got right now is worth $100. Well, I paid for all the vacations that he sent everybody on to get them there, and the TVs and the toasters and all that stuff. The value is not what you guys are taxing us on. So I told the tax assessor 15 years ago, if you don't want to be in the timeshare business, you don't want to repossess these, try valuing the tax them at their actual worth. I mean, this is just, it's morally, it's ethically wrong to ask me to pay somebody else's taxes, and that's just what you're doing here.
Any other comments from the public? Please.
Good evening. Louis Searway, McDonald Avenue. Lived here for 41 years. Purchased a timeshare 1 week, every week, in October of 1988. They were just building the first of the buildings at that time. Paid $5,500 for 1 week in 1988. Paid my real estate taxes through the association for 8 years. And then in 1997, fiscal year 1997, for some reason, the city started taxing owners directly. So for 23 years, I've been paying my taxes directly to the city of Ellsworth after getting a tax bill. For 23 years. It's worked out quite fine. Now, I understand that it's a burden, and things have changed, and you have a lot of timeshares on your hands. But I present to you that you have the personnel, you have the means and the computers and to do this. You've been doing it for 23 years. It is a burden, I understand that. But now to put this on the hands of the association is the wrong thing to do. Just the wrong thing to do. They don't have the means to cover taxes that certain owners are not paying. They just don't have those means. And so as they said, when I get my next maintenance fee, if my maintenance fee goes up to cover someone else's unpaid taxes, that's not fair. So I'm here to oppose the new ordinance. And I have written down 4 reasons to oppose it. Number 1, I've already said, the city has the personnel to do this. You have a tax collector, a deputy tax collector, a tax clerk, the finance department. You have all the people in-house right now who've been doing this for years. Number 2, the city has the authority. I believe that only the city has the authority to assess taxes. The association can't assess taxes. City manager can't assess taxes. The city of Ellsworth is the only legal authority to assess the taxes. And thereby, you should also have the responsibility to collect those taxes. Not the association, not other owners of people who don't pay. It's the city's responsibility to collect the taxes. And if people don't pay, take the legal means to get them paid or foreclose on the property. Number 3, Acadia Village has an annual operating budget of about $910,000. Sounds like a lot of money, but for the property that they have to run, it's not that much. The city's operating budget is about, excluding schools, $12 to $13 million. I think is that right, Tammy? About 12 to 13 million, compared to the association with $900,000. So you have the means within your budget to absorb people who don't pay their taxes. If it's 20,000 unpaid taxes, so be it. Absorb it. Don't expect the association with a $900,000 budget to absorb $20,000 or $40,000 of unpaid taxes. It's a larger percentage on them than it is on the city. And fourth, Acadia Village, I present to you, is not a problem and is not a burden on the city of Ellsworth. This is a gem that is in your town. It's a hidden gem. It is a cash cow to the city of Ellsworth. When I look at my taxes, I have 1 week. I paid $5,500 in 1988. There's about 300 units on sale right now for $100 a week. You can't get rid of them. What's that tell you? That property, all combined, brings in more revenue to the city of Ellsworth than what it's worth. The valuation is way out of line. It's grossly overvalued. To give you, I'm almost done, to give you a couple of definite figures. I own a house on McDonald Avenue. My house is a 1,400 square foot, 3-bedroom house, 2-car garage attached, 1,400 square feet. Typical house, 1/4 acre lot. My valuation is $168,000, minus the homesteader's exemption, so my tax assessment is $148,000. My tax bill annually is $2,785 for my house. No complaints. Very, very reasonable. $2,800 a year. My timeshare, 1 week, is valued at $5,600 for 2020's assessment. $5,600 assessment now when I paid $5,500 in 1988. That's not right. If I take that 1 week, my week of $5,600, which by the way is a townhouse, it's one of the first buildings ever built there, my tax bill is $105 a year for 1 week. I take my 1 unit, $105 a week, times 52 weeks in a year. That unit generates 52 weeks of tax revenue. $105 a week times 52, that's tax revenue of $5,500 a year for my 1 unit. Can you imagine? That little 1 unit week is generating almost twice as much tax revenue as my house. Stop and think about it. That Acadia Village is a cash cow to the city of Ellsworth and to the Registry of Deeds. Every time you see a deed pass through, and I watch them in the real estate transfers in the local paper, there are several every week. Every time you record a deed, there's a transfer tax and recording fees. The Registry of Deeds is making out good, and I say the city of Ellsworth is making out quite well. Yes, it's a burden. I don't doubt that one bit. a lot of work, send out all these tax bills. But you've been doing it all these years. Just keep on doing it. And if you want the association to help you sell some of these, I think they're more than willing to do that. And finally, I would ask that the City Council request the tax assessor to quickly review the assessments on these timeshares. They are desperately in need of being reassessed. When my assessment is $5,600 for my 2020 tax bill, and you can't sell them for $100.
So just in terms of, you made that point, so I just want to move along if give other people a chance, if you have anything else.
I'm all done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me, excuse me, one question. You stated in the first part of your statement that you paid your taxes to the association for 8 years.
Yes.
So what is different about that period of time than when it starts doing it again? No difference.
No difference to me.
In the same scenario that we had prior to, except that it's going back in time.
No difference to me, whether I pay the association or whether I pay the City of Ellsworth directly, there's no difference. However, when you place the burden for the big picture, entire tax bill on the association, they now have to cover those who don't pay.
Which is happening now.
Which, who's it going to be? It's going to be me. It's going to be those of us who do pay our taxes, who do pay our assessments, will be covering those who don't. And that's not fair. It may be legal, but it's not fair. And I propose leave it alone. Leave it alone. Thank you.
Just to clear up one item. You say when we first did for, I believe it was 8 years. That was when the managing entity was John Walker Inc., the development company that was making buco dollars out of these. He had the money, to pay these taxes. He has since gone bankrupt and out, and he's gone. Now it's all the homeowners, and we do not have the deep pockets that Acadia Village Resorts Inc. had at the particular time. Now, the figures that you've heard of $173,000, I believe, is what I've heard for, the taxes that come out of Acadia Village Resorts. That is only, Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that is only the timeshares themselves, the townhouses, the manors, the villas. The common-owned property, which would be, the tennis court, the clubhouse, the pool, and whatnot, that is all taxed above and beyond that $173,000.
Hi, my name is Laura Davis. I live in Augusta, Maine, and I've been an owner here since 2001. One thing I just wanted to add is we're talking about the tax money that's not coming in for the properties that were foreclosed on for the resort. And I don't know everything that, I'm not on the board. I don't know everything that goes on behind the scenes, but we're also not getting the annual dues. So there's a huge amount of money that we don't have coming in, I don't think. Am I correct, Jim? And from all those units that the city owns, you're not paying us your annual. So that's a huge burden on us as well. And just to add for comparison, I own 3 timeshares, love my timeshares. Acadia Village Resort was the first one I bought. I love it here. I can't tell you how much I love Ellsworth, and I've seen it grow. I come up 4 times a year for the board meetings. I come up for the annual meeting, and always asking Jim, how things are going, just trying to keep on top of what troubles we have had over the years. But my other timeshares I own at a Marriott in Williamsburg, Virginia, which is 5-star Very, very nice place, not that this isn't. 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom unit, lock off, I can exchange. My taxes there are $67 a year. My annual dues are more for, the upkeep and maintenance fees are more, but that's my tax. I'm not sure why my taxes, everyone's talking about taxes, the ones that have mentioned taxes being $60, $100, up to $100 a year. You probably got to check today for mine. I found out they were due, mine are like $129 a year for my unit. I have another one that is it's a studio unit in Aruba on a nice white sandy beach that I paid $29 a year for in taxes. Again, that's not my membership fee, the maintenance fee is on top of that as well, but I have, and they're deeded properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Councilors?
Well, I do think that it's fair to ask them to reassess. As one of the people pointed out, that she's paying $129 here for less space than what she's got in Virginia. And it should be also looked at almost like a trailer, because a trailer in a trailer park, they pay a tax for the trailer. When you own a timeshare, you own the unit, but you don't own the land around the unit. So if we're going strictly by value and they can't sell them for $100, definitely needs to be reassessed urgently.
When I first heard the proposal, I thought it's a great idea. But I think it's gonna take a second look, particularly with regards to perhaps changing the tax rate and so forth. I'm not entirely against it, but I think that it's gonna take more time than put this into place in July 1st, 2020. I think it needs more discussion. I don't even know what the question is, let alone the answer. But I think we need to perhaps look at it that way.
Is that a motion?
No, it's a comment, but I found myself doubting my initial enthusiasm.
I would agree.
And I really don't know the questions.
Well, we need a motion on this agenda item, specific to the item of what action you would like to take on the item.
I move that we reassess our position.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Can I get a clarification? If we, I was wondering if it was possible to maybe pass it with the 2021 date with the option of.
So can I just stop you there, because we do have a motion on the table. So if there's not a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
I'm sorry, what was the motion again, please?
I move that we reassess our position until we have further clarification as to the impact this is going to have on the homeowners association.
I mean,
So
the table.
Well, that wasn't the motion though. So if there's not a second, then that motion sits and we can move on to discussion. So that motion does not, so continue discussion in councilors. Councilor Phillips.
Whether we enact this month or bring it back next month after further discussion, the 1 month probably wouldn't make much difference. And having heard what we've heard tonight, I think probably further discussion amongst ourselves, and some of the other entities would be called for. So having seen the people here tonight and the points brought forth, I think I would suggest and move that we table it till next month's meeting.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion?
So could we put a,
No.
no?
A table. I keep forgetting.
Okay.
I tabled it. All those in favor of tabling this until next month? Unanimous? This will be tabled. Item 14, Council Order Number 121903, request to authorize the city manager to enter into a master lease agreement with Acadia Village Resorts for the marketing and management of city-owned timeshare units.
Great. Were you coming? Oh, okay. You have a proposed master lease agreement before you, which was discussed some in the prior agenda item. Again, Councilor Hamer is here tonight to discuss it. In short, we own upwards of 300 timeshare units. This is not our business to be in. We found ourselves marketing them on the city website and on the scroll out there, and rightfully we're trying to figure out ways to move these units, and in discussions with Acadia Village Resorts, we brought in Attorney Hamer, and after some give and take, we have a proposal for your consideration.
Good evening again. The purpose of the lease agreement is a little bit different than the ordinance. The ordinance was to basically stop foreclosures from happening. The lease is the other side of the coin. It's designed to help the city put back into service those units that have been foreclosed upon. So this lease would have usefulness with or without the ordinance. Without the ordinance, you may be getting new foreclosures and new units in your possession, and then this lease would basically be turning it around and leasing those units and all of the city foreclosed upon units back to Acadia Village, or the managing entity if it's a different group, so that they can try to sublet those units that the city owns and market them for sale. So the whole point of this lease is to take all of the foreclosed upon units that the city owns, either now or in the future, lease them back to the managing entity so that they can try to lease them. And if there's demand in the summertime, perhaps for some of those weeks that you may own, then great. You may be able to get some lease rental unit rental monies from those rents. And maybe not. It may be that they lie dormant as well. But the other half of that is that Acadia Village would also be trying to market the units along with their own. So you'd still be engaging in the foreclosure process, and the management of the units, however, would still be transferred over to Acadia Village so that they could try to have a unified marketing approach to try to get some money back to the city. The lease would provide for a sharing of the rents and sales of those units so that they'd be compensated for some extent for their marketing efforts and for their leasing efforts. And I believe that I'm not sure if these are the final numbers, but I believe that the idea is if a unit is rented, Acadia Village would keep 25% of the rental for that week, and 75% would be remitted to the city, and it would be a 50-50 in the case of a sale. Not a huge lot of money, but we're talking about really it's the marketing effort that's most important to the city, is to try to get the units sold so that it's not in your possession. And the lease is, right now, it's designed to be a 5-year lease with 5 successive renewals if the parties agree to it. That was how it was drafted. That can be changed, but that was the idea, that this would be a long-term type of lease to see how Acadia Village is able to do better marketing perhaps in the city.
Councilors, for your consideration, I would throw out a deference for the situation in terms of how they're linked, that perhaps we may want to consider putting this off until we also have the opportunity to resolve the other aspect of it. But
I would agree. I think that
in the next month, it would perhaps give us an opportunity to hear from the owners of the association as to how they feel about it. And we could take a look at it at the January meeting.
The substance of this won't change no matter how we tax the association, whether we discuss this and move this along and let them have an opportunity to market or attempt to market these. That's not going to change this month to next. What may change is the way that we do our taxation. I can't see that we gain anything by setting this aside, because it's two separate agreements. It's nothing intertwined really with it.
I agree with you on that point. I'm just thinking that for a better dialogue, it won't make that much difference if we wait one more month, even if we come back and pass that exactly as it's written. Or would it? Would it be a hardship for us? We want to table it for a month.
Manager Cole?
Certainly, another month, you know, is not crucial. However, Councilor Phillips is correct. This has independent utility from the ordinance. I believe that we're on the same page as Acadia Village Resorts. I think our staff and they think this is a good thing to do. You could debate whether, you know, what the split is, but the primary objective is not the sale price. It's getting them back and on the tax rolls and in productive state. So certainly we can support this as is, as staff, but if the council's more comfortable, it could wait a month as well.
Would anybody from the association have a, one person maybe have a thought on it?
Council Blanchett, then we-
I have a question on a master lease agreement. What's the oversight? What's the oversight on AVR's part, and what's the oversight on the city's part?
Yeah, John? And before John addresses it, I would say that this is a good faith attempt. You know, it can go year to year, see if it works, but John can talk to the actual enforcement provisions within here.
Sure, this is a lease agreement, so it's a voluntary agreement between the parties. And in terms of, the city would be working hand in hand with Acadia Village in order to make this work. In terms of oversight, you could request whatever documentation you wanted about what efforts were being made to market the city units. The lease actually puts forth an order of preference in terms of leasing. The city's units would be leased in the middle range in terms of preference, and that's listed out here in the lease itself.
So if a unit is leased June, July, and August, that the city owns, how do we know that?
Well, I mean, to some extent, there's going to be a bit of trust between the city and the Acadia Village. We have a lease agreement, so you'd have the right to inquire and ask for records to show if the unit was being leased or not. If they were to lease a city unit and not tell you about it, then that may cross the line into some criminal action. I don't know that that's a major concern. The lease amounts that we're talking about are relatively small. Acadia Village does have the opportunity to earn some money off of those over those leases if they're sublets, if they're done. But I don't suspect that there's going to be any abuse of the relationship. Again, if there was any question, I think the city would have absolute right to request documentation to show what units were rented for which weeks, if there was any sort of accounting necessary. I'm not sure if the lease specifically addresses that. We could certainly review it and make sure it does.
All right.
Councilors? Any?
All
motion?
As far as the lease goes, what David has explained is the bare bones of it. We haven't received the document yet, and we haven't had it reviewed by our attorney. So there'd be a little time on that. But basically, the way I understand it is that we would do the sales, we would present the sales information on the new owner to the city. The city would prepare the quitclaim deed. David would sign it, very quick and easy, you know, and we would show proof of, you know, sales and all of that. As far as the leasing or the renting, I don't think there's going to be a lot of that going on. The city doesn't own a lot of weeks in the summer because they've sold them all. They have more value than $100 valuation, so owners have grabbed those up. So you're talking basically the off-season, the November, December, January, February weeks. So as far as the renting part, it may be a couple weeks where the city would see rental income. School vacation week in February and April would be two that stand off real quick.
Council Phillips.
You, as a representative of the organization, have seen this great document, and you are in favor of this or think that it's a fair agreement for both of us and a good concept?
Yes. Like I said originally, I'd like to see the council give us a year, see how many weeks we can knock off the city inventory and revisit this in a year.
I was hunting for your general feeling and just in a public forum, but you are thinking it's a good thing. So.
Yes.
Thank you.
If I may, just to go back to your question, I went through the lease very quickly, and there is an accounting demand provision that's in the lease that says that the landlord, which would be the city, may at any time demand from the tenant, which would be Acadia Village, an accounting of all rents received by tenant from any sublets or assignees, and the tenant shall promptly comply with said demand. So there is a contractual provision in there that allows you access to the books and to request an accounting. You caught me off guard there.
Mr. Hamer.
Didn't mean to do that, John.
Page, lease agreement, page 2 on the use. With it, it's a small word, but the unit shall be considered a 30 party. It should be third, I think. Just a correction.
I'm sorry, where are you?
Page 2, top line, into a rental contract with itself for the use of the unit and shall be considered, and you have a 30. I would assume that should be a third party for the duration of the contract.
30 parties would be an awful lot, I would agree.
It should be third.
I'm sure it will be.
That's
I'll
just that
dig,
one
I'll
thing
find it
was-
out and I'll
Nice
fix that.
catch.
Thank you.
Councilors.
Move to authorize the city manager to enter into a master lease agreement with Acadia Village Resorts for the marketing and management of city-owned timeshare units.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item number 15, Council Order 121904, request to authorize the city manager to accept a grant award of $20,000 from the Maine Co-working Development Fund.
Good evening, Jana Richards, Director of Development Services. So the city has been awarded a $20,000 grant from the Maine Co-working Development Fund. That's a program of the state's Department of Economic and Community Development. This is to be used at the Union River Center for Innovation. The grant funds will go towards supporting ongoing programming at the Union River Center for Innovation with a focus on enhancing the center's co-working membership program. The overall goal of our proposal was that the enhanced programming and infrastructure improvements would increase the exposure and the use of our co-working program and membership down at the Union River Center for Innovation. It is already a significant source of revenue for the center, and we're hoping that by instituting some of this programming that was in our grant proposal, as well as some of the technical infrastructure improvements, that we will continue to enhance the use down there and be able to collect revenues from that to be used down at the center. You don't have the formal contract in your packet because we haven't received it yet, but I did provide the award letter for the grant. As noted in that award letter, Acceptance of the funds includes participation by the Union River Center for Innovation in a statewide collaborative network of other co-working and incubator spaces that were awarded this grant. We're looking forward to that because we believe that throughout the state, particularly in the southern half of the state, there's a lot of programs that have been running for a really long time, and they've been able to take out of that a lot of best practices for collaborative workspaces, and we think that we can institute and incorporate some of that within the Union River Center for Innovation. So I'm here before you to request that the City Council consider authorizing the manager to accept the $20,000 grant from the Maine Co-working Development Fund. I'll take any questions as well.
Questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, authorize the city manager to execute the necessary agreement to accept a $20,000 grant from the Maine Co-working Development Fund to support the city's co-working membership program at the Union River Center for Innovation.
Second.
We have a motion, we have seconds. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
There you go.
Thank
Nice-
you.
Nice job. In compliments to Director Richards, she wrote a great application.
Item 16, public hearing and action on proposed amendments to the City of Ellsworth Code of Ordinances, Chapter 3, Harbor Ordinance.
Mark Remick from the Harbor Commission. What we're asking for is a shift in our daily operational hours, starting an hour later, going an hour later. We're finding that there's more of a demand later in the afternoons than there is earlier in the mornings. This is an emphasis on public service.
Would it affect any businesses negatively?
Not negatively, no.
I've had quite a bit of experience in the harbor, pumping water out of my boat, stuff like that. But I agree with you 100%. I think it's more important to have the harbor open for an extra hour for the people coming back in who may want to gas up or something like that. And it
Yep.
usually isn't as busy first thing in the morning.
Now, generally speaking, boaters are getting ready late in the afternoons, early evenings for the following day. This next season, when we add the dual fuel system, we're picking up more of the commercial guys coming out of Perry Longs and out of Pretty Marsh. So we are looking for an increase in commercial traffic. So this helps us better serve that population.
Questions? All right. This is a public hearing on proposed amendments to the City of Ellsworth Code of Ordinances, Chapter 3, Harbor Ordinance. Public hearing is open. Anybody else like to comment? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Councilors?
Ready?
Ready.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve amending the harbor ordinance to change the hours of operation to 9 a.m. until 6 p.m.
Second.
A motion is second. Further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Item 17, Council Order Number 121905, request of the Fire Chief to purchase a fire engine and loose equipment through the Houston-Galveston Area Council Cooperative Purchasing Program, with the dealer vendor being Greenwood Emergency Vehicles.
Good evening, Chief Richard Tucker, of the Fire Department. I want to make one slight correction to that. This is not a fire engine, it's a fire rescue apparatus, more definitively a heavy rescue apparatus. So this item we've been working on for almost 2 years now. We've had a committee put together that has been researching the needs of the department to fulfill this apparatus. They've done a tremendous amount of work to come up with what we need versus what we want. We typically have a 20-year lifespan, give or take, depending on the apparatus, that was structured a while back in a capital equipment replacement program. I know that has changed recently to submitting requests for capital equipment through the Capital Improvement Committee. That was done with this apparatus as well. The committee did approve to move this forward to this level at this point, to present it to you for consideration. So this request is to replace our rescue truck, which, to describe that truck out to you a little bit, and I don't say this to belittle the term, but it's our rolling toolbox. So this truck carries equipment that is either above and beyond what we can carry on the rest of the apparatus, the typical fire engines or pumpers, that augments those trucks and other services that we provide. This apparatus rolls on practically every call that we go to. There are some variations to that, depending on what the incident is. If it isn't one of the first pieces of apparatus going to an incident call, it is typically at least the third one. So we use it a lot, to say the least. The current apparatus that we have is a 2001, so it's 18 years old now. Like I mentioned previously, we typically work on about a 20-year cycle. This one was slated for replacement following a different apparatus, but for various reasons we bumped this one ahead of that one. And most of them are related to maintenance needs and items that we've invested to keep it safe and on the road. NFPA requirements do recommend that any apparatus over 15 years old be refurbished, and any apparatus over 25 years old should be replaced. So we're in the middle of that time zone, so my recommendation is to replace it rather than to refurbish it. I think it's going to be a much better need for the city. I am requesting that we purchase this through the Houston-Galveston Area Council program. What that program is a program that helps municipalities by developing a pre-bid, if you will, program where all these vendors submit per specifications to the program a bid for any type of apparatus, whether it's a fire truck, a dump truck, or whatever. And that gives us the opportunity to look at an apparatus in question that we're trying to propose, work off the base specifications, and it does allow us to make modifications as necessary to fit our needs, of which we have done. But it stays within that bid process. This helps us to avoid but it takes place of the formal bid process that the city typically goes through with the procurement process. We have utilized this process recently with the last purchase that we did with our Engine 2, our lead pumper. And there's several other towns and municipalities in the state of Maine that have done this process as well. I'll try to keep this brief. I do respect the time that we are at. We are looking at a fire apparatus versus a custom chassis. And the biggest reason of all for that is the safety factor for a fire truck apparatus. Sometimes you'll hear people call it a custom apparatus. Well, it's built for the fire service. It's built to service the needs of a fire service. And as I say, the safety factor is the biggest issue that pops out for my concern. It's literally built 5.5 times stronger than a commercial chassis for rollover protection or accident protection, that sort of thing. It is built for the needs of the fire service. The technology, the safety, the effectiveness, and the efficiency within that apparatus is built to service what we need it to do. We kind of compare a fire apparatus to a high-performance vehicle. Take a NASCAR vehicle, for instance. That vehicle is a very expensive vehicle that needs to perform 110% for that driver for doing what it does. We relate that to the fire service because our apparatus needs to perform 100% every time we need it. That is why a fire service vehicle is very appropriate. I have been asked what would be a trade-in value or a sale value of the current apparatus, and I honestly cannot give you a good judgment call on that. If we go with this purchase tonight, we're looking at approximately a year, a little bit longer than a year for the, to be built and delivered. So to give you a value of what the vehicle is that we have now, would be inappropriate for me to guess at that. So if we go to that, to the purchase of this vehicle, I would suggest that we try to sell the current vehicle on the auction program that the highway department has used. We could at that time get the current truck assessed to give us the realistic base value of it, and then go for bids from there. And then that value could be used towards the purchase or whatever you choose to do with that. The other big thing that I really want to two things. We currently have a lot of different types of resources that we have that are just either stored at the fire station or out to our training site because we just don't have the space on the apparatus to carry it. This truck is going to provide us opportunities to have additional storage space so that those items can be carried on the truck. So we're not wasting time trying to go get it from a storage area and then take it to a needed incident. The last thing I'd like to really impress upon us is the service after the sale. This company we've experienced extremely good service with. If we need a truck sent back for a service, they send a driver to come get it and they take it back. They give us a quote as we always want up front. We can get the purchase orders ready for that. If they get the truck and they determine that there's something additional that needs to be done, I don't get a bill, surprise bill. I get a phone call and says, Chief, we've discovered this issue or that issue. Is this something that you can handle in-house? Is this something you want us to take care of at the shop? No pressure. I've always been able to make that decision, and if necessary, get the approval for additional funding to make those costs, the repairs done. So I can't say enough about the service of Greenwood. They are exceptional. I have not yet seen any surprises. With that all said, not to belabor all the rest of the paperwork that you already have before you, I'd gladly answer any questions. Chris from Greenwood is here as well to answer any questions that you may want to ask of him. He said he'd be happy to sit back and listen if you don't have any questions for him.
Councilor Blanchett.
Chief, you stated that this proposed purchase was bumped ahead of another vehicle.
Correct. And that would be the tanker that's downstairs.
How far ahead was it bumped?
Well, the tanker is, according to that original capital equipment replacement program that I talked about, the tanker has already gone past a year, and this truck here has gone past 2 years. Now, again, that obviously takes in the assessment of what is the current status of both of those vehicles.
You're talking the 15-year, not the 25?
20.
20.
That original one, if you remember back several years, and I'm going back a little ways, it was always based on a 20-year replacement.
I'm not very old, so I don't go back very far.
Yeah.
So how long before you come back to us for a new tanker?
Honestly, probably in the very near future. Probably in the next year or two.
Okay.
And again, that timeframe, obviously it would go to the Capital Improvement Committee. We would obviously look at that much closer, that second truck, and evaluate what is the priority of that. Does it need to be a year? Does it need to be 2? Or can we make any repairs or adjustments to it that would gain us a little bit more time?
Councilor Phillips.
What do you approximate that you're going to be able to spend on the next truck?
Well, that's a very good question.
Well, if you get $500,000 in this.
The cost of apparatus has gone up exponentially, no different than our regular vehicles that we drive. I don't dare to guess, to be
If you
frank.
spend $500,000
Yeah.
on this one, is the next one more complicated or less complicated?
It is
than
going
this
to be
truck?
more complicated because it would have a pump on it and
Okay.
additional equipment, there's
And
no question.
what did we spend on the ladder truck, $750,000?
$750,000.
That's 1.2. So you're up to pretty close, yeah. You know how many police cars we can buy for that?
Okay, sorry.
Council Kaplan?
Is there any reason why we're not looking at a newer truck but used?
Other than a used apparatus is going to have issues over time that are going to start to compare to what we're looking at right now with our current truck. You know, do you buy somebody else's problems and just have them sooner, or do you buy a new one and have warranties that carry you out there a little bit further?
I was looking online to see what the rate or what the price of used fire apparatus is. Saw pumpers for $200,000 between year 2012, 2015. It's less than half of what we're paying now, and they had 11,000 miles on them.
I would seriously want to consider and look at what is the condition of any of these. Sometimes you get lucky and get something that's in really good condition, and sometimes you get a lot of problems.
And fire rescue was as little as 85,000, and it was a 2016. And I thought, and it has less than 5,000 miles on it. So I would be concerned about putting out $500,000 for something that's going to be valued much less in just a few short years.
I guess the only question I would have is what are we comparing for what you were able to see online versus what we need?
And that's where you're the expert.
Yeah, yeah.
Council Miller?
Did you get an estimate for refurbishing it, what you would have to do?
I did not.
Okay. And I know that, I looked at it today, and I know that even if you refurbished it, would it still have trouble with the front end, being that it's like a medium-duty truck and with a heavy-duty, you know, what it's used for?
I think that it certainly would have its own issues regardless of refurbishing or not. One of the major issues with this truck, being a lighter duty chassis, it was not required to have air brakes, and those have haunted us from day one. So it's got normal hydraulic brakes, and we've had multiple brake repairs on this apparatus.
Council Phillips?
The brakes are sized to the chassis and the capacity of the chassis, and even though, so are you saying that you have added more weight than that chassis should carry?
Well, I don't believe so, John, but understand also that when we load our trucks with the equipment, they're loaded roughly 85–90% all the time. It's not like an over-the-road truck that's varying that load constantly too, so.
Do you know what the truck we have downstairs now, do you know what the front end and the rear ends, what sizes are?
Can you help me on that one? Either one of you? I honestly don't know.
So you got an 18, I think an 18 inspecting this one and a 24 on the rear, which 18's maybe a little bit big, the rear I didn't think would be much different than the one you've got sitting downstairs.
This is a tough situation, because it's a lot of money up front. $500,000 is a ton of money.
There's no question.
And you're gonna need a pumper truck in a couple of years. We need roads fixed and everything else. So, on the one hand, you need good equipment, and there's no question that this is a pretty impressive thing you've got going here. What I have trouble with is the packages of $500,000 that are gonna be flying out of here. Not just for fire trucks, but for all kinds of things, including road repair. It's a very difficult decision to make.
If I may add just a little bit more, too, a year ago when we priced this out, we had a quote of $425,000. So that's a significant increase in only 1 year's time. The chassis that is in this specification is identical to our engine, other than the box on the back and the pump and stuff, but the front of it is the same. And the importance of maintaining consistency, and I've heard us all talk about that many times, maintaining consistency of a fleet, instead of one of these ones and one of those ones and one of this one, is very important when you're jumping in that truck to respond in an emergency situation. You know, controls are all in the same location, the switches are the same things, that sort of thing.
So I just want to voice, and I'm going to voice my frustration. You've heard me say this before, but I'm going to say it again, and probably each time I say it, get more frustrated. We assembled a capital committee to look out 5 years. And this is the second time that we've been approached with an item this item is on there. But I just heard you say that in 1 or 2 years, you're going to come forward with another request. We were looking 5 years out in our capital committee. That's not on there. And we did that specifically to be able to look long range and put the priority in terms of roads and capital items. And it does no good to have a capital committee that we don't have the information coming to that committee from the departments so that we can vet everything and put it in context. So I'm going to again express that that's the reason for the capital committee. That's to be able to look at these items and to be able to think about them and plan for them in a manner that we can afford, and not go down the road of getting, year after year, all these items converging. So when we bring the capital committee together again, I certainly hope that we will have 5-year projections for all the departments so that we can look at the needs and vet them appropriately. Councilor Phillips.
Yeah, that being said, how long ago did you come and get the Scott air packs? And that was ahead of schedule too, wasn't it? And that wasn't, what was that, how much money was that?
Well, on those, it wasn't necessarily ahead of schedule, but we had a schedule replacement program, and then that offer came to replace the entire fleet and eliminate the replacement program, basically.
And that was how much money, Richard?
$225?
What's that?
$225?
$225,000. I thought so. That rang a bell when we were talking about that, Dale.
And that was just prior to this,
Yeah.
almost the impetus, I guess, of why that capital improvement.
Yeah, and
committee-
it wasn't, I wasn't referring, the first
Yeah.
incident was not your department. But it's the second case where we've dealt with issues that should have been at the capital committee so that we would have, being able to look at that.
I apologize if I didn't, but I thought I did have the truck 4 in that overall package.
Richard, these nice drawings and everything, this looks like a Cadillac. Is there any possibility that you could downscale and come up with something that's still usable?
Well, as I mentioned before, the committee had looked at all of our needs of equipment that are on that truck, and that's what, basically the compartmentation in the back of it is designed to hold what we need to carry. The difference of the cab from a conventional cab to the crew cab, if you will, again, that provides opportunity for storage of equipment outside of the back compartments because the air packs can be built right into the seats. The advantage of that is when the firefighter is getting off the truck, he's suited up, he or she is suited up with an air pack ready to go. So that's the difference between a commercial chassis and a fire truck chassis, something that is built for what its intended use is.
Councilor Phillips.
You've been using the truck 2001. This is, so for 17 or 18 years, you've been using the truck you've got. What's this new truck going to do for you that the old one doesn't?
Better compartment space that's designed to carry the equipment that we have on that truck, plus the equipment that we're leaving behind because there's no room for it, either in the station or out to our training site. And then the crew cab holding personnel and having them being able to be ready to go when they get off the truck.
Yeah, I looked at it, and I know there's only room for maybe 3 people in the front of the
2
car.
with turnout gear on.
Yeah, if they'd be tight for 3, yeah. And I know you just want to send out 4. And then when that truck was made, the back, you could sit in the back.
No, that's kind of a misconception. The seating area in the back, that was designed as like a command post. So there was a table that flopped down in that seat. It was not a riding
You
position.
can't do that anyway.
No.
So, I know you can send out less drive, but like I said, this is a lot of money, and I think we should look at some used vehicles first before we start spending this amount of money.
If you get the right deal, you could probably get your pumper and your heavy rescue for the same price as you're looking just one. 2012, 2015, it's still much newer than what you've got now.
Councilor Blanchett.
To buy a fire apparatus used, you mentioned, Counselor, an hour ago, labor rates of $105 an hour, you thought were high. On a fire truck, I don't believe you're gonna get labor rates for $105, first of all. And you're gonna be spending a lot of hours and spending a lot of money keeping that truck on the road, which takes it out of service. I don't mind used equipment in some respects, depending on what it is. Fire apparatus, I don't believe a city the size of Ellsworth, we should even be considering used.
I think if you have a year to look, that you could find potentially the right vehicles that meet your needs and don't break the taxpayer's piggy bank.
My first question would be, why is this on the used market? I see the repair bills for the city's vehicles every Friday morning. Some of them scare the hell out of me. I would go out on a limb and say those would be nothing compared to used fire truck repairs. And the other thing, I'm looking at the absolute safety of the firefighter. I do not want to put them in a situation where the equipment we have is second rate, where it's inadequate, where it can't be trusted.
As an ex-firefighter, I would not like that either, and that is not what I'm suggesting. I am suggesting we look at used vehicles and evaluate them for safety and how they will be used.
I think it's the best of both worlds. I go out, I buy a car, I don't go for a brand new car. I go and get a used car, I do my homework, I evaluate it, I have it inspected, and at the end of the day, I'm home with a car that's 3 years old instead of brand new, and I'm perfectly happy with it.
Councilors, I'm going to remind you to please wait to be recognized and speak when you're recognized. Council Blanchett, did you want to finish?
Oh, no.
Comments? Any other questions?
For some clarification on a used apparatus, I would dare say that it's going to be darn near impossible to fit some of the equipment that we need to get on this truck. It's going to be very, what do I want to say for the word? It's going to be, it's either going to fit or it ain't going to fit, and I dare say that it's probably not. Some of the equipment that we're looking to put on here is extremely bulky, and that's why when we designed this one, we designed spaces for it to fit a specific spot. For example, our ice rescue sled for rescuing somebody that's gone through the ice. We've created a slot for that to fit into on this truck. That piece of equipment would fill the back of a pickup bed. That's a very large hole to put that in, and for a used piece of equipment and to assume that that's going to fit into, it's probably not. So that's kind of the challenge that we faced in designing the truck to fit the needs of the department. You know, and we'd probably fall back to the same situation that we are in now.
Councilor Blanchett.
You use the word fit, Chief,
Mhm.
which brings up the question, those doors are X
Yep.
amount of size. The
Yep.
current vehicle that we have,
Yes.
was that ordered specifically to make the clearance?
Every vehicle, with the exception of the pickup, was ordered specifically to fit through those doors, because they are much smaller than
So a
the
used
typical
vehicle-
fire station. It's again hit or miss to
It's-
find the one that
Right,
is
it
actually
may or
going to
may
fit
not
there.
fit literally through the door.
Yeah.
Councilor
I'm not
Phillips.
saying it won't, but it's hit or miss to find the right one.
Councilor Phillips.
And you talk about, and another term you use is needs. You need to have this on there, and you need to have that on there. And you're now using a truck where you don't have all that stuff at the same time, as in that ice rescue sled. I got a pretty good idea that July and August, you don't need that, so that might free up some space. But a concept issue here of what you'd like to have on the truck and would need on the truck, two different values. That's some
I get what
with
you're
what you're
saying.
actually using now and doing the job.
I get what you're saying, but if this ice rescue sled was in the station.
That's one
or-
item, I don't,
or
and
anywhere
all the
else,
other
yep.
items too.
Yep.
That's one thing that you brought up.
Yep.
Councilor Moore.
I agree with Mark on one point especially. I wouldn't want to see you use a used vehicle under any circumstances, because, I mean, it's far too important a job. But I don't mean this as a flip question, but I'm wondering why we can't get more years out of a vehicle. From what I understand, the rescue truck that we have downstairs has, what, under 40,000 miles on it?
Mhm.
But it goes out on a lot of calls. You know, 80% of the time there's something going on, that thing goes out there.
So unlike an over-the-road truck, where we're going out on calls, but most of the time that's staying right in Ellsworth, unless we're going on a mutual aid call or something like
Yeah.
that. So it's not long-distance runs all the time that it's doing that. So the mileage isn't the bigger factor of just wear and tear on the truck from the road salts, to the use that we use it for and stuff like that. It's not most predicated on mileage. It's
What does the underneath of that truck look like?
rusty.
But I mean,
It looks like typical vehicles underneath it.
is it in danger of having the frame
The
break on it?
passenger side floorboard is extremely spongy right now, so that's gonna need some attention, probably either way, whether we make this purchase or whether we try something different. The front end has got major wear on it, we just replaced the kingpins on it. Again, I said the brakes were a major issue, and a lot of that isn't necessarily from braking, but just normal use out in the street. Again, it's not lots of miles that are affecting these vehicles.
Thank you.
Councilor Greenhouse.
I have two comments, questions. I really have a hard time believing that, back in July of 2018, it was at 425,000, and now we're 1 year later and it's at 550. That is huge inflation, and I don't understand that. I have a problem with that. My car, I just bought a brand new car, hasn't changed in 5 years. So what was the cost for that
Can I revert back to?
$125,000 increase?
Yeah, where that, Chris?
My name is Chris Champagne. I represent Greenman Emergency Vehicles. We're in Brunswick, Maine. And to answer your question specifically, all modern custom fire apparatus is made from either aluminum or stainless steel. In the last 18 months to 2 years, there's been phenomenal inflation on those materials. All the trade wars that have been going on with China and the United States and all this type of thing, every time comments are put in the paper about more tariffs, all the steel speculation just goes crazy. And so we have had incremental increases in cost that have been way disproportionate to historical numbers. The average per annum is about 3.5% for a fire truck. In the last, say, 3 years, it's actually been more than double that. It's been very, very cumbersome on our industry as well as the trucking industry. I know many fire chiefs that are building new fire stations right now, and especially if they're building a manufactured style building, the quotations they're getting for their fire stations are virtually out of date before the towns can even vote on the property because the cost of steel is changing so quickly. So unfortunately, we're kind of on the downstream of this. We buy motors that are made from aluminum blocks. Everything is just going up for us exponentially. It is not like we're profiting more, to be perfectly candid with you. We're kind of the tail's wagging the dog a little bit on this. And one other comment I would add, I listened to the conversation about used. We certainly see some customers purchase used. In fact, we do sell some trade-ins now and again. I would say that a vehicle like this is pretty highly customized for the use of your community, for the things that your fire department is carrying. The odds of finding a vehicle that fits in that space, that carries the equipment you're looking for, is somewhat of a needle in a haystack. But one comment I'd make that's probably more relevant than that, because that's more a matter of speculation, is there's an innovation in the fire service for apparatus that's come into play in roughly the last 5 years, and that is the galvanization of the frame rails on the apparatus. Because if you take a commercial over-the-road vehicle, it stays typically outside in the same environment all the time. So although it is affected by the road salt and the chemical treatments, it isn't going outside, getting exposed, backing into a warm, moist environment like a fire station. What we see in our service business is that apparatus are dying from the bottom up. They may look great in the 4th of July parade. The paint still looks pretty decent. The firefighters do a great job of waxing them. But we get them inside, put them up on a lift, and go to put an inspection on them. And lo and behold, the frame is actually negligent. It can't pass an inspection for vehicles that aren't that old. Well, all new modern apparatus that we've produced all come now with a galvanized frame system that has a 25-year corrosion warranty. So this is one thing that you get with a newer piece of apparatus that does give you some peace of mind that you're going to get a longer service life out of it than even one that was available back in the earlier 2010 plus range. So that is one consideration, new versus used, along with obviously new trucks come with warranties. Having said that, it's your community, it's your purchase. I'm not here to speak to that issue, but I did have that piece of information I wanted to throw out because I thought it might be relevant to the conversation. While I'm standing here, are there any other questions I can answer for you before I retreat?
Councilor Grenville, did you have a second part?
Well, the second one goes along with the used vehicle. I think it warrants, with the amount of money that we're talking about, I think it warrants at least looking for something that might fit, that we might be able to fit. And 2 years old, 3 years old, I don't know what the market is, but you just spoke to it a little bit.
The used market falls into kind of three areas. There's the market for vehicles that maybe have been purchased back by a manufacturer, and I won't get into detail of what those are, but that's a vehicle that I might avoid. There is the stuff that people always have this dream about some community that's run a truck for a few years and they're turning it over, but I do find as the cost of apparatus has gone up, there are less and less communities, even very wealthy communities, that were able to do that. There used to be the whole Pennsylvania volunteer fire department thing where they raised so much money through their local in-station gambling they could buy trucks every 5 years and turn them over, but even that is kind of going away. So if you're seeing something on the market that's probably a decade old, it probably has come out of a high-use situation. It's probably a city that turns them over pretty frequently. Or you get the vehicles that if the price point is very aggressive, it's probably reached the end of its service life, or it's very appropriate for a smaller community that's not going to use it a whole bunch. I mean, we do some used trucks. Typically they're for folks that need a specific use, can't afford a new truck for that use, and it's maybe a secondary vehicle that's not going to get used a whole bunch because frontline stuff that you're using all the time, you don't want the maintenance nightmares of a used vehicle, that kind of stuff. But it's like anything else. It's not as easy as buying a used car, unfortunately, because it isn't like they're all the same. They're all a one-off vehicle, and it's very hard to gauge the compatibility of that used vehicle. But again, it's your community, it's your deal.
So I'd like to just add, picking up on what you said earlier, I think part of when we look at purchases, well, individually, businesses, and we should certainly follow suit, is you buy when the market's right, and you buy when the conditions are right, or you pay a premium. And the situation that you described in terms of the dramatic inflation is all around one factor. And that factor, if we sit here and look at it, if I were making a purchase, I would say, I'm going to hedge my bet, and my bet would be that the market's going to change. And so for me sitting here, that's a significant expense to take on to purchase something because the steel market has just gone out of sight because of the trade war. That's likely to pass.
So to answer that question specifically, I've been selling apparatus just about 21 years myself. I have lived through quite a lot of different market times over that time. I have never seen apparatus go down. There have been years when the inflation flattened out or the economy was very poor, like after 2008 when things were quiet. You might see a year or two where the market is such that they don't do any price increases. But I've never seen a situation where the price went down of apparatus in my 20-plus years of doing this. It's just not the nature of what the manufacturers do. Like I said, the most I've ever seen is a flat year-over-year price, and I've only seen that, I think, once or twice in 21 years. So I'm not saying this, I don't really, whenever you purchase this, we don't care. We've been selling fire trucks for 40 years, so we're not really worried about it getting a sale tonight versus tomorrow night. It just is a situation, I don't want you to have any illusion that somehow in 2 years, if the market softens, the price is going to come down. The reality is, the best it would be is probably breaking even, and probably not the case because still the market is escalating right now. The prices are going to go up again this spring. We've already been kind of intimated that's the case. So I'm not trying to argue, I'm just telling you my experience.
Councilor Phillips.
Well, it's an interesting concept with the steel, because if it's affected you for 20%, over 22%, then you would think the automotive industry would have been affected by that same price increase. And I didn't see that reflected anywhere, because there's certainly a fair amount of steel, and by percentage, that would be in the same concept.
I think the difference is the buying power that they would have. We're one of the larger fire apparatus manufacturers, and we're still producing under 1,000 vehicles a year. What you're seeing from a vehicle manufacturer would be much more than that. I would say that we do sell some apparatus on commercial chassis, and I have seen some pretty substantial price increases coming from Freightliner, Kenworth International as well. So I think they're experiencing it well. A lot of it has been in the cost of what we get from the motors, Cummins and Detroit and stuff, raising their prices substantially. When you take the percentage of the material we have on our vehicle versus a car, it's just a huge amount of the metal. But it's just I think a lot of it, quite frankly, is just speculation. The whole industry, I bid trucks all the time. We're in this HGAC program. We're in several other national programs. All the prices are going up proportionally. We're not by any means on the front end of that. It's just what the fire apparatus is doing.
I suspect your engine cost changes from emissions more than it is from material cost.
Well, it seems like every year there's something, for sure, yes. I would agree with that.
Councilors, what would you like to do?
Is
Councilor
there any
Kaplan.
reason we can't hold off for a few months to at least allow time to look to see if there's something else out there that's used that would be able to meet your needs?
We could do that, Joe.
Good evening. I'm Bobby Dorr. I'm a captain downstairs, chief nominated me chairman of the committee to search for this truck. I want to talk about a couple of things that I've heard tonight, some of them being what Councilor Phillips has talked about, items we need versus what we want. Well, the rescue sled you talked about that we only need in the winter months, we need all year. It's a rescue sled for cold water. We can get hypothermia in the Union River 365 days a year. We use that sled to rescue victims or potential victims from water events. And if we have to leave that behind and we have to load that in the truck at the time of an incident, it takes several minutes to load said items, decreasing the chance of survival for the victim we're being called to save. The other thing is you go down High Street and you can see potential. What you see as potential versus what we see as potential might be two different things. The Jackson Lab, made up mostly of concrete masonry units, very heavy concrete slab material. What you see is you see a great business coming to Ellsworth. What we see is how are we going to rescue potential victims from this property. So what we used to be able to mitigate with 4x4s made out of Douglas fir, now we're using heavy hydraulic tools that we have to carry around in case of a collapse, whether it be on fire or otherwise, for many of the buildings within the city. these are very heavy, heavy tools that we're asking our firefighters to carry. Right now, they're carrying them up a ladder, if you will, to get in the back of this rescue, because that's the only place they'll fit. So when we designed this truck, we designed it ergonomically for the needs of the department. Yes, a lot of the needs are very potential needs. We may never need to use them, and we hope we don't. But if we do, we need to be able to do so safely. Asking a firefighter to lift a 70-pound hydraulic ram that's shoulder height and then climb down a set of stairs with it is dangerous any day of the week, no matter how fit that firefighter is. So there's a lot of reasons why we spec'd this truck the way we did. It certainly wasn't to inflate the cost or to have the prettiest truck around. It was to serve the community to the best of our ability with the resources we have. So I hope you'll consider that when making your decision this evening, that that it's designed to do what we need it to do. The $250,000 that you graciously gave us to buy air packs, they'd be transported in this truck. This truck would be a RIT truck, and what that means is rapid intervention teams, which we now have to employ every time there's a fire call in order to save ourselves. With that comes compartments full of equipment. In order to resuscitate firefighters who might have Mayday situations, we have to have the equipment to get those firefighters out of buildings other than any way conventional. We're not just going in, the door that you might use and climbing stairs. We're going up and down ladders. We're rescuing people from 3 or 4 stories. It takes a lot of equipment to do so, and we need to have that equipment to do our jobs effectively. So every compartment in this truck that you see before you was built to house the equipment that we already have in order to do our jobs effectively. So, thank you very much.
Councilor Phelps.
Yeah, Bob, I don't begrudge you the safety or the needs for a lot of it. I guess the issue becomes that to get there, the price has gone astronomically high.
I agree.
Yeah,
I'm a taxpayer in the city of Ellsworth too.
concept
It's high,
And
but
the last thing we're trying to do is to put you out there in an unsafe situation or to create more hazards, but there's a cost associated with it. And I brought up the air packs before because $550, $250, you're at almost $1 million, $750,000 2 years ago for the ladder truck. The ladder truck is very specific and very something unique that came, and the size issue, and now Richard brings up the next truck he's worried about. That's another $500,000. So it's a cost issue in justifying it. The last thing we're trying to do is make your job unsafe or create hazards.
and I'm not accusing you of such.
No, but I'm just saying, I don't
Right.
want that concept to come across. And I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying that the concept is, cost is phenomenal. Thank you. And I do thank you for your service, and I know it's not a good, easy job. And I sure as heck wouldn't want to be lifting that 70-pound thing. Not that I could even get it up there anymore, but do it. Thank you.
Councilors? Is there a motion?
I would make a motion that we table it for 90 days while they can look and see if there's another truck that would meet their needs.
We have a motion.
I second it.
There are seconds. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? So we have one opposed, one opposite? Okay. So it's been tabled for 90 days. Thank you. Item 18, Council Order Number 121906, request of the city manager to renew the Franklin Street parking lot lease agreement.
All right. So, in 1992, the city of Ellsworth entered into a partnership with the United Methodist Church, where the city applied for a grant from the state of Maine to build a parking lot, which is now known as the Franklin Street parking lot. In order to justify that public grant, the city entered into a 25-year lease agreement with the church, which ran out in 2017. By all accounts, it's been a mutually beneficial arrangement over the years for the church. They use it for Sunday services and special events, whereas the city has it for week-to-week parking as well as overflow during busy times. In 2017, when that lease expired, Ed Barra, the city attorney, worked with the representatives of the church and the city and put together a lease agreement that was intended to go year to year until such time as the city invested money in upgrading the parking lot. So at that time in the future, that would be termed out to an appropriate level. So I'm asking the council to authorize the manager to renew this lease one more time, one more year, I should say, from December 17th to December 2019 to December 17th, 2020, for a de minimis payment of $1. The renewal just basically carries forward the existing terms. And again, this original lease was reviewed by our legal counsel. And that's the proposal.
You know of any situation where the church has suffered on a Sunday or like in a wedding or anything like that?
Nope.
Have they?
Nope.
So it's worked out very well.
It's been amazingly without conflict over the years.
I don't think there is any reason why we shouldn't just renew it as is.
Would you like to make a motion?
I would.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Move to approve.
Councilor Blanchett.
move to authorize the city manager to execute a lease renewal agreement for the Franklin Street parking lot with the United Methodist Church of Ellsworth for a period of 1 year extending from December 18th, 2019 to December 17th, 2020.
Second.
And there's your lease payment. That is the best, that is the best damn deal that the city has going.
We have a motion and a second. Any more
And a
discussion?
$1 payment.
All those in favor? Unanimous.
Move to adjourn.
Pull the Gary
Move to adjourn.
Did we,
Right.
you spoke, but did we officially move 18 and 19 by vote or 19 and 20 by vote?
Oh,
Before we can adjourn, I
yes,
think
we need to take an official.
they need to be voted off
We
the agenda.
voted off, yes, you are correct.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we remove items 19 and 20 from the agenda as requested earlier.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
You can adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you, John.
My pleasure.